Welcome to KBS World Radio. You're now tuned in to Korea24's Korea Book Club, where we explore the world of Korean literature. This is our weekend replay edition, playing back our book segment from Wednesday's show. We hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Kwon Jang-woo. Joining me now in the studio is our literary critic, Barry Welsh. Barry, hello. It's great to see you again.
Yes, hello.
Okay, so what do you have for us this week?
So this week we're reviewing a novel from the mid-1990s called I Have the Right to Destroy Myself. The Korean title is 나는 나를 바꾸할 권리가 있다. And the writer is Kim Young-ha and the translator is Kim Ji-young. And this novel was actually Kim's debut novel when it was published back in 1996. The English translation was published in 2007. And Kim has, of course, had a very successful career as a novelist, short story writer, travel writer, podcaster, and we've reviewed many of his novels and short stories over the years. But it was extremely interesting to go back and reread this short novel to see how it holds up today and see if it still has anything to say. And it is still a very powerful, very strange novel and one that's definitely worth reading as it comes up for its almost 3 decades of since it was published. So in I Have the Right to Destroy Myself, we find Kim exploring the complexities of human existence and delving into the minds and lives of those contemplating suicide. So it is a very dark topic, very dark subject matter. And the novel presents a unique perspective on this subject. And again, what Kim is doing here is he's challenging conventions and inviting readers to question their own beliefs about some very difficult subjects. And so we're presented with a series of haunting narratives. Kim's sort of meditating on the themes of love, loneliness, art, and the desire for control that you have over your own destiny. It's a dark and surreal novel. It's about alienation, suicide, and the struggle to find meaning on the hyper-modern streets of Seoul.
Okay, so that's quite a haunting preview you've given us there. Can you tell us more? What is the premise of I Have the Right to Destroy Myself?
Okay, so it's a very strange concept for this very thought-provoking book. The story is framed by an unnamed narrator. This narrator's job is he's a suicide counsellor, but he offers his clients an unusual proposition. So he will help them end their lives in exchange for a sort of a final act of beauty. And Kim uses this narrator as a framing device for the story that follows of a kind of twisted love triangle. And this love triangle involves 2 brothers just referred to as C and K. And they're both attracted to and both have relationships with the same woman, Seon, although they refer to her as Judith most of the time in the story. And so their 3 lives, they crisscross at various times. And the story delves into the lives that they're living, and often against this backdrop of possible suicide, and they have relationships and explores these themes of love and loneliness, and if you have any control over your own existence. And even though this was Kim's debut novel, it showcases his very distinct narrative style, and this is characterized by lyrical prose and philosophical reflections, often on art or love or death. And what we see here is Kim's ability to tackle very sensitive and often taboo subjects, with a great deal of nuance and sensitivity. And, he's, delving into these existential themes, the human psyche. And again, I think that this book, when it was published in the 90s, reflected, a trend in Korean literature where, again, authors were exploring, these sort of increasingly complex and reflective narratives.
Yes, that's quite a web of stories and issues going on. And it sounds like a part of the appeal of the story might be how the reader untangles all that. As you said, this book came out in the mid-1990s. What does it tell us about Korea at the time it was published? How does the book address the societal and cultural context of Korea in the 90s?
Yeah, right. So this is a super interesting aspect of the novel. Like reading it now, it sort of has this sort of time capsule of specifically Seoul, but South Korea in the 1990s. So it's quite a detailed portrayal of the social cultural background at the time, and so through the characters, through the story, they sort of reflect the hangover of the rapid modernization, the significant economic growth that was happening at the time, and then the resulting social dislocation. So these characters are all sort of alienated by things that have been happening around them, and they're like many of the characters we find in Korean literature, they're lost, right? So we see a lot of disillusionment, alienation. There's this struggle to find identity in a changing society, we find all of these trends still happening in modern Korean novels. And what Kim is looking at here is the consequences of the South Korea's rapid modernization, what effect this had on its citizens, and he highlights the disorientation, the alienation experienced by people like C and K and Judith as older traditional values clash with this emerging consumerist culture. And again, very interesting because these trends have just intensified in literature in the recent years.
Sure.
But these three characters, they're grappling with the loss of these traditional structures. The family units kind of splintered apart and they don't really have meaningful connections, and they're sort of lost in this fast-paced materialistic society.
Yes, it sounds like a cutting reflection of the times, and you said it still holds up today, so it seems it still echoes today. You said it also explores themes of struggling to find identity in a changing society. Can you expand on that a bit more for us?
Right, yeah, so that's one of the things that Kim is mainly interested in this story. Like, who are we once these sort of traditional structures have fallen away? And, C and K and Judith, they all find themselves, adrift in this changing society. They're searching for some kind of sense of self, some kind of purpose, and they try and find this through art or love or sex. And what Kim is exploring here is the tension between their individual desires and then the expectations of the world around them, and they have to kind of navigate a path through these sort of different pressures. There's a pressure to succeed, there's a pressure to conform. How do they deal with those challenges? And so we have this very introspective journeys of these characters, especially the two brothers. But the novel also, I think, captures just that universal struggle that we all have to find some kind of meaning or authenticity in the face of society's expectations.
Barry, your final thoughts on the book?
Okay, right. So I Have the Right to Destroy Myself. Absolutely still worth reading now. It's a very challenging book. It challenges the reader to question your own beliefs and, explores the moral, ethical dimensions of suicide, examines the boundary between life and death, agency and control. We have Kim Young-ha's lyrical prose, his introspective storytelling style, and these things together make for a haunting and deeply contemplative reading experience. So it's a thought-provoking book, encourages introspection, invites readers to confront their own perspectives on life, love, the human desire for self-determination. And, through these sort of introspective characters and narrative, I think it captures the zeitgeist of South Korea in the 1990s. So if you want to get a feeling for what Seoul was like in the mid-90s, this is the book for you. It explores the consequences of rapid modernization, the struggle for identity, the impact of external crises. And Kim Young has just a very insightful storyteller, and I think a lot of readers will appreciate that this book kind of shows that universal quest for meaning in an ever-evolving world that we all struggle with.
Right, so that is I Have the Right to Destroy Myself, which I think is also a very arresting title.
Yeah.
And it was by Kim Young-ha, translated by Kim Ji-young. That's all for this week's Korea Book Club. Barry, thank you for that book, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, take care.
And that's all for this week's Korea Book Club. You can check out more of the works we discussed on our website at world.kbs.co.kr. Join us again next week.